I knew it was Manchester. Fucking knew it. Rangatani in Manchester. What the fuck is
Not that
that?
I wanted to show you this video, but I was looking for a different video, but this came up. Look at this. This is what Muslims are adding to British
Pubs.
society.
Muslim pub.
I'm outside a pub right now. I wish there was a halal version of like pubs. Like
This is actually right. There's a whole pub next to
There's
the
a whole pub. Maybe he'd be okay with half a pub, but there's a whole pub?
Mustard, right? And
The
look at these
fucking
man.
cheating mill, I think.
Oh,
What is
this
that?
man.
Where's that cheating mill?
Violating,
That is
violating,
maybe
bro.
not
How is
cheating
this even
mill.
possible, bro? How? Subhanallah,
Don't
dude.
know what it is.
See how shocked he
Same
is
Manchester, England,
that there is a
Manchester
pub
somewhere.
next to a mosque? How is it possible?
Oh, you shouldn't have a mosque there in the fucking first
How's
place.
there a mosque in a secular and Christian country?
Yeah.
How are you in a secular and Christian country? How is that possible? Well,
Oh, is that
things are gonna
Rangatani
change.
allowed in
Well, they are
England?
changing. They have to change.
Can you
They're
not?
not the numbers. They play their cards way
Get
too
fucked for themselves.
It's not fair, bro. At least respect the Muslim, bro. Respect some, have some respect.
No respect. F off.
So, here's a masjid, here's a mosque, and here's a pub. See?
There's
That's
a
it,
mosque, there's a
no.
pub. He
It, no.
cannot fathom that this is a reality. He's raging other Muslims that, guys, look what's happening, do something about it. Well, sorry to break it to you, you don't have the numbers to do anything about it. I actually want them to keep doing this, keep antagonizing the local public, so our argument gets strengthened by their stupidity. So we like that. But anyway, I think it'll happen. They'll have to go back.
Yeah, they have to go back all.
I do understand that you can't forcefully deport everyone who's a Muslim. That cannot happen. We've got to be practical and what's palatable.
Yeah, no, people that have integrated as English Muslims, mate, and the Muslims that live around the world that are integrated in these other countries will be staying. Marasusa, he's staying in England. Nobody's saying we're going to deport Marasusa and Ben Lviv and things like that, you know. No, that's going too far. That's pathetic for people to think like that. No, they need to grow up. No one's saying we're going to be deport Caliban and all that. No. So, you know when this is, they actually need to fucking grow up. To think things like that, yeah, that people are going to be deporting people like that. Where do they get off thinking like that? No, we're deporting the illegal immigrants, the criminals. And some of the ones that have been ported in by legal visas, and some of the ones that have been deported in and haven't integrated, they will be going. End of fucking story. Another murder now. Where we are, 17 minutes ago. What's happened now?
Her future was bright, but it came to an end
Right, it's
with
not
a
now.
callous execution in broad daylight. Two women working for Joe at the time witnessed events at the closest quarter, and Ian met them to hear their remarkable and shocking account.
The peace of Birstall was shattered just before 1 o'clock in the afternoon. It was just a normal Thursday. Jo Cox, MP and mother of 2 young children, was on her way to meet constituents at a routine surgery in Birstall when she was shot 3 times and stabbed 16 times in a senseless act of brutality. In the middle,
Shot and
2 women
stabbed.
working for Jo who have
Fucking
rarely
hell,
spoken
why
about the
shoot and
experience
stab?
or
Why
the
someone
aftermath.
shoot you and stab you?
it was just a normal day, and Fazila and I were in the office waiting for Joe to arrive. Now Joe was always late,
Yeah.
and Joe and I were having a meeting in the car because she was late. Fazila was driving, and I just stood on the pavement talking to Joe. And in my peripheral vision, I saw someone walking down, and I thought, oh, I'm going to be in their way. So I stood back, and he just shot Joe. Just like that, not a word, just shot her in the head.
I saw her on the floor, and then Sandra started screaming, and I think at that point I thought something is seriously wrong now. You know, all I could think about was the children, you know, and I just kept saying, Joe, you just need to stay with me. But unfortunately he continued, and he was determined to kill her.
You said get away from
Yeah.
her, she's got 2 little kids.
Yeah.
And then we start, you do really think, we started hitting him with our handbags.
Yeah.
Because what else do you do? You know. Oh.
I think what's clear on that day was he was her target. I probably represented everything he hated, but she was absolutely his target on that day.
And then Jo said to us, she said, "Get away, you two, get away, let him hurt me, not you." And I went towards him, so he came towards me, and then he went back and started stabbing Jo again.
And all this has just happened in a whirlwind, a split second.
At that point, I said to Jo, "I need to help you a little bit, I need to move you." And she said, "Fazil, I'm hurt." And that's the last thing she said. And then she did unfortunately die in my arms after that, so, yeah.
Not the day that you were expecting by any imagination. I mean, just absolutely devastating.
One of the worst things for me was Jo's mum and dad came running up the road, and Jean, Jo's mum, flung her arms round me and said, "Please tell me she's all right, Sandra. Please tell me she's all right." And I just said, "They're working on her. You need to get there as quickly as you can." And as a mother, saying that to another mother, when I knew that her child, and we knew then that she'd gone, was one of the hardest things I've ever done.
While Jo's killer, a far-right extremist, was convicted at the Old Bailey and given a whole life term, Jo's death has had a lifelong effect on those who knew her well.
All right, we get it. I get it. It's just to criticise everybody, to be far-right extremists.
Welcome back. I want to talk to you tonight about a square,
Yay.
Trafalgar Square, one of the most recognisable public spaces in the world. Welcome back. I want to talk to you tonight about a square, Trafalgar Square, one of the most recognisable public spaces in the world. The square that commemorates a naval victory that secured British dominance at sea and shaped the course of Western history. The square that has been the site of V Day celebrations, of New Year's gatherings, of the kind of national moments that belong, in the deepest sense, to the whole of Britain and to the history that made it. Last month, Sadiq Khan stood in that square and hosted what his office described as the largest iftar dinner in the Western world. Thousands of people, a celebration of Ramadan at the heart of the British capital. And in his speech, the Mayor of London told the crowd that he wanted them to feel the power of being Muslim. He told them there were forces trying to stop Muslims from expressing their faith. He told them, in the square that belongs to every Londoner, that he was there to champion one community's identity against the forces that opposed it. I want to be precise about what I am and am not saying tonight. I am not saying that Ramadan should not be celebrated. I am not saying that Muslim Londoners do not have the right to gather and to mark their faith publicly. These are not the arguments I am making, and I will not allow them to be attributed to me. What I am saying is something different, something that goes to the heart of what a mayor is supposed to be and what this mayor has chosen to become. Subscribe now. What follows is the conversation about Sadiq Khan that his press office works very hard to ensure you never see framed this way. Let us begin with the speech itself, because the words matter and they should be examined carefully.
And the reason why
our mention allies is, let's be frank,
got your scripts, mate.
it is difficult to be a Muslim
properly.
in 2026.
King
When you're in London,
Charles,
in other parts of the UK, in Europe, or across the world. We see what's happening in Iran, in the Middle East region, in Sudan, in Gaza. We see what's happening in Ukraine. We see what's happening across the globe. We see the forces of division and darkness pitting communities against each other, trying to cower us and scare us to be less Muslim, to be less Islamic, to make us scared, to put our heads above the parapet. But we've shown during this month of Ramadan the power of being a Muslim, the joy of being British. We have tonight, by the way, not just the biggest iftar taking place in London, not just the biggest iftar in Europe, not just the biggest iftar in the continent of Europe, but the biggest iftar in Western world.
Oh, in Western world,
that's because by having the first Ramadan nights in the Western world, there are Islamophobes and people denigrating London. But I'm really pleased, not for 1 year, not for 2 years, not for 3 years, but for 4 years we've had lights celebrating Ramadan in the heart And that's the joy of London. This Sunday we celebrate St. Patrick's Day. We'll be celebrating Eid, Diwali, Vaisakhi, Christmas, Hanukkah. That is the joy of London. It has strengthened diversity and weakness. It's got a weakness and a strength.
The power of being Muslim. That is what Sadiq Khan told the crowd in Trafalgar Square. He wanted them to feel. Not the power of being London.
That's what we do when they
Not the
start
power of
doing
being
that.
part of a diverse and tolerant city. Not the power of being British
Sadiq
citizens
Khan
with the
starts
full
talking.
protection of the law and the full rights of citizenship. The power of being Muslim specifically. Defined by faith. Defined by the characteristic that distinguishes the crowd from the majority
That's
of
what
the
we
city
need
the
to do,
speaker is
Douglas
supposed to
Murray.
represent without
When they
distinction.
start
Now
talking.
imagine a different mayor. A hypothetical
Different
mayor
mayor.
of London who stood in Trafalgar Square
Yeah,
at Christmas
but to
and
be
told a
different
crowd of
mayor.
Christian Londoners that he wanted them to feel the power of being Christian. Who told them there were forces trying to stop Christians from expressing their faith. Who framed his role in a public address in a public square as the champion of one faith community against the forces arrayed against it. That mayor would not survive the week. The headlines would write themselves. The calls for resignation would come from every direction. The BBC would not be able to cover the story fast enough. The very act of singling out one religious community and positioning yourself as its champion against unnamed enemies would be treated as an immediate disqualification from public office. Sadiq Khan did exactly this for a different community in the same square. And the coverage was celebratory.
Same block of the old block.
It is the entire argument. The
The
standard
entire
applied to one
argument
faith community
is in the
is
faith
not the standard applied
community.
to another. The language
Not
that
for
would end
anyone
one
else.
politician's career is the
One
language that
politician's
earns
career
another
is in the
politician glowing right
king's
up.
pocket.
And the man at the
Out
centre of this
king's
double
pocket.
standard is the mayor of a city of 9
The
million
man is
people
out
who
of
is supposed to
king's
represent all of them.
pocket.
Let me talk about Trafalgar Square itself for a moment,
Yeah.
because the choice of venue is not incidental. Public
Yeah.
spaces in a democracy belong to everyone. They
And
belong
we're no
to the
longer.
nation and to its history and to the full range of its citizens. When a public official uses a public space to deliver a speech that champions one community's identity and frames that community as under siege from hostile forces, they are not using that space neutrally. They are
Nope.
making a claim on it. They
Yeah,
are
they're
saying
saying this is ours.
implicitly that this square, this national square, this square of
This is
shared
theirs.
history, is today the territory of this particular group and this particular cause.
Probably.
Trafalgar Square has hosted
So
gatherings
it's
of
not for
every
everybody
kind,
else. Just
political
for one group.
protests, cultural
So
celebrations,
that's why we should sing
national
la la
commemorations.
la la
Its democratic
la
virtue is
la.
precisely that it belongs to no one exclusively. When Sadiq Khan stood there and told a crowd that he wanted them to feel the power of their specific religious identity and that enemies were trying to suppress
Because we
it,
don't want to
he
sing
was
the
not
Queen and the
celebrating
King.
diversity. He was dividing the square. Now let me address the claim
Dividing
about
the
forces
square.
trying to stop Muslims from expressing their faith. Because this is a serious allegation and it
Don't do
deserves
their own
serious
faith in their own
scrutiny.
fucking
In Britain
country.
in
That's all I give a
2026,
fuck about.
Muslims
Bye.
can practice their faith freely. They can build mosques.
Yeah,
they can
they can do what
fast
they
during
want.
Ramadan.
Yeah.
They can pray publicly. They can observe every requirement of their faith
We're not allowed
without
to do any of
interference from the
that.
state. The legal protections for religious practice in this country are robust and they apply to every faith equally.
No, they
What
don't.
Sadiq Khan was describing when he spoke of forces trying to
Don't
stop
apply to
Muslims from
everything,
expressing their
people.
faith was not
People
legal
keep
suppression.
people.
He was not alleging that the government was closing mosques or that the police were
No.
dispersing prayers. He was
No.
making a vaguer and more politically useful claim.
Saying that
The
they
claim
were
that a
opening even
cultural and political
more.
environment exists in which Muslims feel their identity is under attack. This may be a real feeling. I do not dismiss it.
I do.
Prejudice exists. Discrimination exists. Individuals face hostility on the basis of their faith, and that is wrong wherever it occurs and whoever it targets. But there is a very significant
Yeah,
difference
it's
between
actually hard,
acknowledging
isn't it?
that prejudice exists and standing in Trafalgar Square as the Mayor of London and positioning yourself as the champion of one community against the forces of darkness. The first
forces
is
of
honest.
everybody else's
The second
community.
is the weaponisation of a real grievance for political purposes. And the political purpose is not difficult to identify. Sadiq Khan has built and maintained his electoral coalition on a very specific foundation.
Yeah,
he knows
from
his
King
numbers.
Charles.
He knows which communities deliver his margins. He
Yeah.
knows that a speech about the power of
That's
being
why
Muslim
King
in
Charles is
Trafalgar
still in.
Square will be received as powerful and
why
affirming
they're
by the
all
people
still
he
in,
most
because
needs to
that's
keep
what they
on
want.
side. This is not leadership.
Bringing all
This
them
is
in so they
management.
can fucking
The
have all the
management of a
power.
coalition by a politician who has decided that his
Yeah.
job is to represent the
Not
interests of the groups
leadership,
that
it's
vote for him,
fucking
rather than the
dictatorship.
whole of the city he was elected to serve.
Yeah,
Let
no
me put
white
this in the
people
broader
there, no
context of
black
Sadiq Khan's
people,
decade
no
in
Chinese
City Hall,
people,
because this
just
speech
Muslims
did not
up
come
there.
from nowhere. For 10 years, the pattern has been
If you're
consistent.
not into
The Ramadan
the
lights
Quran
on Oxford
Ramadan,
Street
then
while the
if
word
you're not
Christmas
Ramadan,
disappears from the
yeah,
Christmas
Christmas
decorations.
disappears while
The
they have
personal
all that.
appearances at Muslim community events while the mayor is largely absent from the
And the
equivalents
king
in
is
other
never
faith
there for the
communities.
Christmas event,
The
never there
reflexive
for
use of the
Easter.
phrase far right to describe any Londoner who raises concerns about the pace of cultural change in their
Never
neighbourhood.
there.
The willingness to attend pro-Palestinian marches that drew enormous crowds
Why
while
would it be
describing
when
the
he's had
UTK
all that
march
money
of
in
100,000
suitcases
British
and
citizens
changed his
as an event
religion? Why would
organised
he
by
be
convicted thugs and racists.
you know,
Each of these, taken individually,
Buckingham
can be
Palace and all
explained
of
away.
this, look,
Context can be provided. Alternative interpretations
we
can be
get
offered.
battered off the
But taken
police
together,
English.
over a decade, they form a pattern.
They
And the
bully the
pattern
Jews,
says
they
something
bully
clear
the
about how this
Iranians.
mayor understands his role and who he believes he is accountable to. He has governed London on the assumption that
The
the
only
city's
people in this
changing
country I haven't
demographics would
seen
keep him in
rising up
power
yet for anything is the
indefinitely.
Chinese,
That the communities whose
the
concerns he
Japanese,
centres are growing
It's
and the
not.
communities whose concerns he sidelines are shrinking. That time is on his side.
Well, that
That he can
time will
afford
be
to
on
make the
your
kind of
side when the
speech he made
Chinese
in
and
Trafalgar
Japanese
Square
they fucking
without
start
worrying
there.
about how it lands with the Londoners who are not in that crowd. For a while, that calculation worked. He won elections. He accumulated
Well,
power. He got his knighthood.
I
But
think
something
the
is
Chinese
changing,
and Japanese will
and it
have
is
to stick on
changing
English
faster
side.
than his political model anticipated. The UTK
Well, their
march
countries
did not
get
happen
taken over.
because
Well, it's not about
100,000
any
people
old
suddenly
building
became
days. This is a
extremists.
different
It happened because the
category thing.
cumulative
People
weight of
countries
years
get
of feeling
taken over by all
unseen,
of this.
unrepresented,
All
and
over the
actively
world, so
dismissed
the
by the
world's
man
gonna
who was
look,
supposed to
every
speak for
country's gonna
all
have
of
to wake
London,
up, like
finally
you say.
produced a public response of
And
sufficient scale to be
we do need
impossible
help.
to
Each country
dismiss.
needs help
The
off
families
each
from
other,
Wigan and the
off each
veterans from the
country.
Midlands and the
Off
grandmothers
each
from
other
Harrow
country,
who
each
came to
country needs
London on a
help.
Saturday did not come because they hate Muslims. They came
It's
because they
like
have spent a
Ireland, we need the
decade
help of
watching
the
their
Irish.
mayor make choices that say
The English need
loudly
help
and
because we're
consistently
soft.
that he does
We're
not
too
govern for
fucking
them.
soft.
The Trafalgar Square
Even the
speech
women
is the
are all
clearest
harder over
expression
in
yet of what
Ireland.
those choices add
The
up
women
to.
might come out
A
and
mayor
someone,
standing
you
in the
know,
most national
the
of national
Irish women are more
spaces and
tougher
telling
than
one
English fucking women.
community that he wants them to feel the power of their
I was going to
specific
say they seem
identity,
to take the
that he
power.
sees
Even the Irish
unnamed
women are very
forces
tough
trying
to
to
the English
suppress
fucking
them,
women.
that he is their champion.
You
And to
know,
everyone else in his city of
now
9 million people,
the
the
fucking
message is
acting.
equally clear. You are not who he is talking
Not to
about.
the,
You are
we're
not the
Margaret now
community
in
whose
English.
power he wants to
We've gone
amplify.
mad.
You may be the unnamed force he is
And we
talking
need
about.
breaking back up
You are
and
at
be
minimum the
taught back
audience
again
that
how
does
to
not
be
need to
so
be
fucking
addressed,
mad
whose
ass.
concerns do not need to be centred, whose identity does not need to be
And we don't
celebrated
mean
in Trafalgar
violence, we
Square.
mean like
I want to end
politically.
with something that I think
Other
matters
ways.
beyond the immediate political moment. Democracy requires that elected
Well,
officials
in all
represent
ways,
everyone
we
who
need to stop
elected
being
them.
mad
Not
in every
everyone
single
equally in
way.
every speech and every policy. The world is not that simple.
No, it's
But
not.
there
That's
is
what
a
I'm saying.
standard, a basic and non-negotiable standard, that says the holder of a public office should not use that office to position themselves as the champion of one community against others.
Yeah,
Should not
that's what
stand in a
Civic
public
Cards
square
do
and
it,
frame the
and you have
political
to
landscape
big
as a
to
struggle between the
back
community they are
in.
championing and the forces arrayed against it.
Once
Should
again, for
not,
dodging
in
money
short,
suitcase
govern
in
as
the
a
money. That's
faction
why he's
leader
been
rather
there
than
to
a
get
public
money in the
servant.
suitcase.
Sadiq Khan has crossed that line.
Yeah, he
He
has.
crossed it in Trafalgar Square and he crossed it in
He
plain
didn't go there
sight.
to
The
pray
speech he
and
gave
whatever,
was
because
not
he
the
was talking
speech of a
about
mayor.
fucking
It was the
gay
speech of a
rights and
community
alcohol
organiser
and
who
macca.
happens to have the largest office in London and a
But-
security detail
Yeah,
paid
and
for
I've
by
always
the
keep
taxpayers of the
saying,
city he is dividing.
I keep
The people
telling
of London
everybody,
deserve
I keep
better.
telling
The
Donald
Muslims
Trump
of
the
London
place where he
deserve
wants
a
to
mayor
take
who
out is
represents them
number
as
10
citizens among
Downing
citizens,
Street.
not as a community requiring a champion against unnamed enemies. The non-Muslim
Because it's
majority of
creating
London
from
deserves
here.
a mayor who speaks for all of them with equal warmth and equal commitment.
That's
And
it, let the
Trafalgar
country
Square
out.
deserves to remain what it has always been, a space that
Leave the
belongs to
people
everyone
alone.
and therefore to
Just
no
the
one
fucking
exclusively.
number 10.
What Sadiq Khan
Westminster.
delivered in that square was not a celebration of London's
Well,
diversity.
Buckingham
It was a
Palace,
demonstration of
dating
who he
William
thinks
of
London
Leeds.
is for. The British people are drawing their own conclusions
Buckingham
about
Palace
that
is no good for
demonstration.
them anyway,
They are
so
drawing them
they
at ballot
don't
boxes
want
and in
Buckingham
by-elections and in the polls that show the political
Evil is
realignment
out
accelerating
there,
faster than
creating on
anyone in the
William and Harry.
establishment anticipated. And they will continue to draw them for as long as the Mayor of London stands in national
Well, they can
squares
have
and
a new
tells one
palace, they can
community
build a new
that its
palace
identity
somewhere,
is
you know,
powerful
somewhere else
and
in
its
the
enemies are
country.
real, while treating the rest
But
of the
it won't
city
be
as
where
an
it should
obstacle to be
be.
managed.
it'll be another part
Subscribe,
of the
share
country.
this. The question
Where I
of
think
who
the
London
palace
belongs
should
to
be
is
is
one of the most important political
possibly
questions in Britain right now.
in
And the
Yorkshire,
answer
where
Sadiq
it all
Khan is giving
started
deserves
with
to
the
be
palace.
heard, examined and challenged by every Londoner
And
who
I
believes
think
their
I'm going
city
to,
should
I
be
think we're
governed
going
for
to
all
take
of
the
them.
power out
Thank
of
you,
London
and I will see you next
and bring
time.
it back to the north of where it should be.
So there's been a major new development concerning the sentence handed to Vikram Digwa for the murder of 18-year-old Henry
got my
Novak.
songs
Now, as
about
many
that.
people know,
And I said
Digwa was
the death
sentenced
penalty.
earlier this month to life imprisonment
Don't
with a
care the
minimum
death
term
penalty, I'm not
prescribed in
changing my
court
mind, it's the
as
death penalty,
21
mate.
years. That sentence was immediately met with criticism from members of the public, with multiple requests being
Or
submitted to the Attorney General's
deportation
office
to another jail in
asking
his
for this
own
sentence
country.
to be reviewed. But this has now moved
This
beyond the
one
stage
is
of simply
adult
being
care.
considered,
Which
with
one?
news in the last few hours that the
Well,
Solicitor
there's
General
option there.
Eddie
There's
Reeves
two options
KC
there.
has
Well, there's two
formally
options
referred
I'm
Vikram
giving.
Digwa's
It's better
sentence
than
to the
none.
Court of Appeal under the unduly
Better than just saying
lenient
one option.
sentence
There's
scheme.
two options.
Now, this means that senior judges will now examine the sentence imposed at
And
Southampton
we want to
Crown
see the
Court and
family
decide
of the
whether the
men,
minimum
the
term was
brother, the
unreasonably
father's
low.
picture.
Now, the Court of Appeal
Where's
could
the
leave
brother
the
and
sentence
father's
exactly
picture?
where
Why
it
have you
is,
not
or it
shown
could
their
even
pictures
refuse
and
to
already
hear
shown
the
them the
case. But they
So
may
they
also
show the mother's
decide that
picture,
the
but
original
not the
sentence
father
was
or the
indeed
brother.
unduly lenient and increase the minimum number of years Digwa must
I think
serve
that's a bit
before he
of
can
what?
even be considered for release.
Protecting the
Now, in
father
announcing the
and
referral,
brother.
the Solicitor General said that the
So
case had
if you're on the
horrified
mother
her
and brother,
personally,
the father
and that
and
the
brother
same
getting
feeling was
protected.
shared by members of the British
Well,
public.
identity
She said that
protected.
difficult questions needed to be answered about the way Henry's murder had been handled by police,
Well, I
while
think
her
they
own
should
role
be
was to examine the
deported
sentence imposed upon Digwa for his
straight
crimes.
away.
She added that no sentence
men
could undo the
should be
devastation
deported.
suffered by Henry's family, but
His
expressed hope
family
that
should be-
referring the case
No, not
might bring
Henry's
them some
family.
further measure of justice.
Novak's family should be
So,
all
what does
deported.
this latest
Novak should be
development
having
actually
death penalty,
mean? Why
they
did
should
the
all be
original judge
deported.
arrive at a minimum term of 21 years? And what parts of
Oh,
that calculation could
deport
now
the
be
family.
reconsidered
Let's
by the
just get
Court
that
of
penalty
Appeal?
then.
Now, firstly, it's important to understand that
You don't
Vikram
get
Digwa
rights
was
when
not
you take
given a
somebody's
fixed
life away.
sentence of 21 years. He was
And an
sentenced
evil,
to life
brutal
imprisonment.
attack
The
the way
21-year
that is
figure represents
same
the
as
minimum
ourselves.
period that he must
The
serve
same
before
sort
the
of thing.
parole board can
And
first
it's done wrong
consider
with that.
whether
This
it
is
would be
why this
safe
is
to
carrying
release
on.
him.
You see, if
Release
you give
at
that
that
guy in
point
Southport
would
the
not
death
be
penalty,
automatic.
this guy might have not
Now, if
done
the parole board remained
stabbed
concerned that
Henry the way
Digwa
he has.
presented a danger to the public,
Even if he's
he could
carrying
remain
that
in
knife,
prison
not,
for
he might
many
have thought,
additional
I'm going to
years. He
Southport,
could
I'll
potentially
get the death
remain there for the
penalty.
rest of his life. It just
I was
depends.
going to say, well,
And even
that's
if he
what I
were
mean. He
eventually
might not
released,
have
he would
done
remain
it.
subject to a life license.
You
and could be
see,
recalled
it
to
might
prison
not have
for
actually
committing another
happened. The
offence
guy
or breaching the
might
conditions
not have
placed
pulled
upon
that
him.
knife,
The
or he
full
might
minimum
have pulled
term
it
imposed
and
by the
then
judge was
pulled
actually
away
20 years
and
and
thought,
190
because
days.
I'm going to, no, it's
That's
not good
because the
enough, I
judge
don't
first
give a
arrived
fuck.
at a minimum period
Because
of
they didn't
21
give
years
that
before
guy
deducting
in
the
Southport the death
175 days
penalty.
Digwa had already spent in custody.
This is the
The
cause of
sentence
this now.
has nevertheless
It
been
is-
widely described as a
It
21-year
is the
minimum,
cause of
because that was
this.
the figure reached before time already served was
Well,
taken
I'm
into
sorry
account, basically. So
to
to understand why
Digwa
the
and
sentence is now being
the
reviewed, it's necessary to look at how the judge calculated that figure. Now,
Six,
under the legislation
but
governing murder sentencing,
all this, you
the judge
taking this
began
out
with a
on the
starting
English white
point
people,
of
the
15
see.
years.
Go and
Now,
take
this
this
caused
out
considerable
on the
confusion and anger
Parliament.
among
Don't
some
take
people
it out
following
on
the
the
case,
people.
particularly because Digwa
Stop
had been
these
carrying the
people
large
taking
damage to
this
murder
out on
Henry
people.
before the two men
Go to
encountered
the
one
fucking
another.
Parliament and
However,
take
the
it
judge
out on
explained
them.
that the higher starting
Because
point relating
if
to
they
the use
had
of the
given other
knife
person
didn't
the death
automatically
penalty,
apply.
this
For that
knife
starting
stuff
point to be used,
would
the
not
offender would
be as
generally
much
need
as
to have
it is
taken the weapon
now.
to the scene,
No, it would
intending
not
to commit an
at
offence,
all.
or intending to have it ready
Well,
or
Henry,
available for
Henry
that very
would be
purpose.
dead,
And
and
basically, the
he
judge
would be in
concluded that
jail,
Henry and Digwa
and this
had
would not
encountered
maybe
each
have
other by
happened.
chance. Digwa
Maybe
had
it
not
might
travelled to
have.
Belmont Road looking for Henry.
But let me
had not planned
say,
the
if that
murder in
person in
advance.
Southport got the death
The judge also
penalty,
said it was possible that
right,
Digwa initially had a
people
lawful religious
would
reason for
think
possessing the dagger,
twice.
but any lawful reason for carrying it ended when he removed it from its sheath and deliberately used it against
Yes, and he
Henry.
wouldn't have been removing it if
The
he got
judge
the
then
death
considered
penalty,
a
the other
long list
person in
of
Southport.
aggravating factors. These were circumstances which made the murder more
He would
serious
have
and
walked
justified
away.
increasing the 15 years starting
And he
point.
thought, if he
So
thought
he started
he'd have
with the
been
fact that
racist
Henry was
abuse
not
or
only
anything
wounded
like that, he
once.
could have
The
walked
judge found
away,
that Digwa had
had
inflicted
a
several
little
additional stab
moment,
wounds
had a little
using what was
push,
described as a highly
walked
dangerous
away like
weapon.
most people
There was
would
the fact
do,
that Henry was only
and
18
go and phone
years
the
old.
police
He
when
was
he gets
alone,
home,
he
or
was
phone
unarmed,
the police
and
for
particularly
himself.
vulnerable.
If he, I was going to say,
Also,
well,
after Henry
if
was
Henry
critically
had done
injured,
that amount of
Digwa
things
showed showed
this
what the
bloke
judge described as
has
a
been
callous
subscribed,
disregard for
as
his
he's been
condition.
vaguely saying.
Now,
Why
rather
didn't
than
you just
telling
phone
those
the
present
police
that
in the
Henry
first
had suffered
place
a
instead of
serious chest
stabbing
wound and
Henry?
required urgent medical attention,
Well,
Digweed denied that Henry had
yeah,
been stabbed
he
and
denied
basically
everything,
accused
he
him
lied.
of exaggerating. We also know that Henry was filmed as he desperately tried to escape and he also continued to
And
film
we haven't
Henry
had that
as his
footage.
condition
Where is that
deteriorated.
footage of that?
The judge considered
That's
this
what
to have
we've got
caused additional
shown.
degradation
I
and
want
mental suffering.
every part
Digweed
showing.
also
I'm sorry,
forcibly blamed
Henry.
for the
But
confrontation.
this is for
He
Henry.
claimed that Henry had
And
racially
this is for
abused and
Henry to
attacked
stop
him,
any other
an account
young
that was
boy.
entirely
Henry
rejected by the
is telling
jury and
people to
later
stop
rejected by the
any other
sentencing
young
judge.
man like himself being murdered
And
like
of
that
course,
ever
those
again.
lies had tragic
He
significant
has had to
consequences.
die to
They
tell
influenced the
people
initial
to
information
stop
that was supplied to police
this
during that
ever
999
again.
call and contributed to
Someone has
officers
to
treating
die
Henry
to
as a
get this
suspect
truth
rather
out.
than immediately recognising him as the victim of
That's
a fatal
what it
stabbing.
is. Someone has to die
Vikram
for
Digwa
that.
also remained
Henry's
present at
had
that
to
scene,
die, and that's what
while
he's
Henry
telling
openly
everybody.
said to officers, "I can't breathe,
And
I've been
and
stabbed,
no
I'm
one was
dying."
listening to him then, and no
And
one's
yet he
listening
continued
now.
to deny that a stabbing had even taken place.
No one was listening
And the
before.
court also heard
Why have we
that
only
the
got her
attempt to
picture? And
conceal
where's their
evidence,
picture? The
with the
dad
mother
and the
Kieran
brother.
Ford attending that scene, taking the murder weapon from
Where's
Vikram
the footage
Digwa
of Henry
and hiding
running
it
away?
back at the family address.
Where's the footage of their
We also
phones?
know that he
Where's the
retained
footage
Henry's
of his
phone,
phone?
which contained an incriminating
Yeah,
recording.
on their
So when
phones.
these two
Where
came
is
together,
their
they had this
footage of the
interaction on Belmont
phones
Road.
as
Henry
well?
took out his mobile
Why have
phone
we
and
not got
started
all of
filming.
that
He
footage?
recorded that initial interaction.
Why have we
And
not
what
got
did
all the
Vikram Digwa do?
footage
He
from the
took
first
Henry's phone
interaction
and kept it
when
in
it
his
was
pocket.
all
So
being
even while
filmed
this poor
first?
individual was laying dying in
Yeah,
this
there we
driveway,
have
he
it.
had Henry's phone
Well,
in
we've
his
only
pocket
got the
the
bit off the
entire time.
police. That's
And
the
this
only
phone
bit
was
of footage
only
we have.
recovered after Digwa himself
So
was
then they
eventually
come one
arrested.
side it and one side it to the
Another
police. That's the
aggravating factor
police's
concerned
fault.
Digwa's abuse of
Not
the
the
privilege,
person that
allowing
stabbed him,
practicing Sikhs to
and
carry a
different
knife in
things
public for
and
genuine
put down to
religious
a
reasons.
narrative.
The
And
judge
we're all
said that
calling
this
the
privilege
police
carried
out,
an
you know,
enormous
people have been saying
responsibility, and that the
no
weapon
one's
should
listening
never
to
have been
another
used
side
offensively, except
because
in
we haven't got the other
circumstances of
side.
lawful and necessary
Because we don't have the
self-defense.
proper footage.
The jury's murder verdict
The whole
meant that Digwa's
lot.
actions could not be justified in that
And that's
way.
not
After
justifiable
considering all
of
of those
this
aggravating
country.
factors, the judge increased the minimum term from the original starting point of 15 years
Like me,
to
I'm now
23
saying
years. The judge
every
then
time
considered
there is
the
a
mitigating
stabbing, a
circumstances.
shooting,
The fact that
and
Digwa had been
anything
22
to
years
go
old
on
when he
with
murdered
anybody
Henry
being
and was
murdered,
23 by
the
the time he was
police
sentenced.
need to
He had
show
no
their
previous
footage of
criminal
exactly what
convictions.
they're doing
And although the
off
jury
their
found
body
he
cams.
intended to kill Henry in the
In
moments before
every
the fatal
single
stabbing,
case,
the murder itself had not been
what
planned
the
in
police are
advance.
doing, right?
Now these factors,
Now
his
that's
age,
not just
his
to say
previous
the
good
police are
character,
all
and the
bad,
lack of premeditation,
It's
reduced the
just
minimum term
proved
from
when the
23 years
police
to
are
21
doing
years.
their jobs
And the judge
correctly
specifically stated
to
there were
say
no other
the police
mitigating
officers
factors.
that are
That
doing the
Digwa
jobs
had not
correctly
pleaded
to
guilty,
them that
he had
ain't
not
doing the
accepted
jobs correctly,
responsibility, and his claim
right?
of self-defence during the trial
Also,
had been
right,
rejected.
is to say
The
misled
question for the Court of Appeal will now
information
be whether the final minimum
being
term
put
of 21 years fell below the range which could
Also,
reasonably have been imposed.
right,
Now,
I
this
want
doesn't
to
mean
know
that
why
all
we've not
judges
had
received
their
the sort of
footage off their
sentence they would
phones.
have passed personally. It doesn't mean that at
Well,
all.
exactly,
But they
why
must decide
not?
whether the existing sentence
Because
is
that's not good
unduly
enough.
lenient. Now, the
We
detailed
want
legal
their
arguments
footage off Henry's
placed
phone, we
before
want
the
the
Court of
footage
Appeal,
off his
they
phone.
haven't been
They
made
were
public.
both
But the
recording
judges may be
summer,
asked to
both
examine
people,
whether enough weight was
Henry
given to
and
the
him were
extensive
both recording
aggravating
on their
factors.
phone.
They may also consider
How many
whether
other
too much
people were
weight was
recording
given to
on their
Digwa's
phone,
age,
his
lack of
family?
previous convictions,
Where is
and the
their
fact that the
family's
murder
footage off
had
his,
not
their,
been
his family's
premeditated.
footage off their phones?
Now, one potentially important question
Yeah.
is whether reducing the
Where is the
calculated
footage?
term from
Properly,
23 years
all
to
of it,
21 years
every last
properly
bit.
reflected those mitigating
From
circumstances
the minute
when
they
placed
bumped
against the
into each
repeated
other to
stabbing,
this part.
filming of Henry, concealment of the evidence,
Yeah.
the false accusations, and the effect
We've only
Digwa's
got this
lies
part
had
to
upon
see.
the emergency response. But it's equally important to recognise that
It's
the
not good
original
enough, that's
sentencing
equally
judge
important.
did
That's not
expressly
good enough for
consider
what
all
this
of
is.
those matters. The 15-year starting point was increased by 8 years due to the seriousness of the
I don't
aggravating
care.
factors.
It's not good enough.
Now, the Court of Appeal could therefore conclude that the original judge had already struck an appropriate balance.
No, it hasn't.
And a referral is, of course, not a guarantee that the sentence will be increased. Now, under the
And I think they have to
unduly
go
lenient
back to the
sentencing
case in
scheme, anyone
Southport
can
and
ask for
redo that as
certain
well.
Crown Court cases to be be
to the
reviewed.
death penalty.
The Attorney General's office then decides whether the
Let's go
case
back to
should be
that.
placed before
No, yeah,
the
but we
Court
can't
of
just go with
Appeal.
this one. We have to go
And the
back
fact
to
that
that
the
one
Solicitor
himself.
General has now made
And
that
he wants the death
referral
penalty.
is
So
actually
does
quite
he.
significant.
Yeah.
It means
All
the
these
case has
people
passed
that
the
we're going
first
back
legal
to
stage, and that the concerns
from that
surrounding the sentence
Southport
have been considered serious
up
enough
to
to
this.
place before appeal judges. But of course, the
Well, we
final
can't just
decision
give one person a
belongs
death
to the
penalty and not
court.
the rest.
As I said earlier, the judges could
For
refuse
the crimes
to
that they
interfere,
committed.
they could leave Digweed's
And then,
minimum term unchanged,
maybe
or they could increase
this
the
crime,
minimum period
no,
he
because
must
King
spend
Charles
in
and the
prison.
government won't want this
But
crime
even
to
if the
stop,
minimum
would
term
they?
is increased,
That's
Digweed's
why they
sentence
won't
will still
stop
remain
it.
a life
There
sentence.
is a stoppation
The issue is
of
not
the
whether he
crime.
will continue to be a life prisoner,
No, there
because
is a
quite naturally he
stoppation
will.
of the
The
crime
issue is how many
going
years
on
he
like
must
that,
serve before the parole board is
which
first
is the death
permitted
penalty.
to consider his release. Now, at the time of making this video,
And maybe
no
we'll only
date
have
for
to
the
give
Court
one
of
or
Appeal
two
hearing
people
has
the
yet
death
been
penalty
publicly
because it will
confirmed,
stop.
and until that hearing takes place, the sentence remains life imprisonment with a minimum term of 20 years and 190 days after credit is given for time already served. But this latest announcement does, however, mark a significant change, because the sentence is no longer simply being reviewed behind the scenes by the Attorney General's office. It's now being formally referred, and that's the most important part, it's being formally referred to the Court of Appeal. Senior judges will therefore be required to examine, and that's the important part, they'll be required to examine whether the punishment imposed for Henry Novak's murder properly reflected the seriousness of Digweed's actions, his treatment of Henry after the stabbing, and the extensive efforts made to conceal the truth. The final decision may well leave the sentence unchanged, as I said before, but for the first time since Digweed was sentenced, there is now a genuine legal possibility that his minimum term could well be increased. Do let me know some of your own thoughts down in the comment section below.
Well, children who were groomed, sexually abused and then prosecuted for crimes including prostitution are still being failed. That's according to Baroness Louise Casey.
Yes, she was the author, of course, of that landmark grooming gangs report last year that led to a national inquiry being launched. She has said that the government's plans to pardon some victims do not go far enough. She's calling for all wrongful convictions to be reviewed and quashed.
Well, joining us now is the former detective constable and whistleblower, founder of the Maggie Oliver Foundation, Maggie Oliver. Maggie, good morning. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. What's your reaction to Louise Casey's intervention?
Good morning. She's absolutely right. You know, I agree with every word she said.
In the first place,
as Charlie
people
knows,
getting
I met with
sentenced
Louise
to
Casey
death
last year, and
they haven't done the crime. So that's why it was abolished,
her review.
Right?
And
but these people have been convicted.
You know,
they are the people that have done them crimes, so there is no saying that they have not.
Here.
It's not accused, you know, it's not alleged, it is
actually 30 years when I
the
first
truth.
Joined GMP and I was going to children's
Well, why are they going to
homes.
talk about it? Why are they going to be allowed to talk about something if it's not
back then
the truth?
About how children were being criminalised when they were already so vulnerable. You know, they would kick off, or they would, you know, they'd be locked up for a public order offence. These are children who were being raped on a daily basis. And there was an insistence on focusing on their bad behaviour, which was really a result of the trauma and abuse they were suffering,
I've got
rather
in
than
my
going
care
after
records,
their abuse.
and they fucked my life up as well with it. You know, it's just terrible, isn't it? It's just really bad. It's got worse. It's getting worse and worse.
Belfast is exploding.
5 minutes ago, there. Well, again. Oh no, this is the other day. This. Why 5 minutes ago? It's showing me now.
Keir Starmer has announced a social media ban for under 16-year-olds. This is the reach of the state going in.
They've not got much to say, have they?
I've really got to hand it to Mark Levin, because he's been a very, very close Trump ally. Trump is very close to him. They communicate. He goes to the White House. And you would think maybe in someone in that position, they've got to be very, very careful about doing anything, saying anything critical of Trump, because they want to protect that relationship. And yet, here he is, openly criticising the President administration's actions in doing some kind of potential deal with the Iranian regime. And that shows high integrity. Again, it shows a huge amount of gratitude and respect praise for President Trump, but thinks and says openly and publicly that this is a mistaken path to go down, as friends would say to another friend that thinks their friend is making a grave error. Now, why is it? Why is this happening? That Trump is doing this? Is it just mistaken thinking on his part about what it takes to win a war, or that, unless you can get a quick win, you have to just exit quickly? Is it people like Vance and others inside his ear giving him bad advice? Is it his concern about the midterms? Who knows? But either way, Mark Levin, I think, is showing a high degree of integrity here. And I want to show this clip where he speaks about his concerns on his own show, on the Mark Levin show, very openly, criticising the whole principle here. I want to share with you what he had to say. Also, just a reminder, if you haven't already, please subscribe to this channel, like and hype and comment, because it really helps us to keep delivering more of these videos for you and to get the word out on this point, which is so important. This is critical. The more people understand that this is not a win, this is not a peace deal if the regime is allowed to survive. The paradigm you have to be looking at is World War II. And if we do a memorandum of understanding again, like we did in World War II, well, the best analogy or equivalent to that was what happened in 1938. We had a memorandum of understanding with Hitler, between Chamberlain and Hitler, and look what happened. Within a year later, Germany had more time to rebuild, conquer, and it led to more bloodshed. So have a watch of Mark Levin's wise words.
I noticed something, ladies and gentlemen. I noticed that this memorandum of understanding is not public. It hasn't been public all weekend. We have the vice president, who insisted on being called a senior administration official for a while, briefing certain individuals, hosts, news people, but not you. I don't think you want your information washed through other people. And even they haven't had access to the MOU. That was signed electronically on Sunday. It's Monday evening. We're told maybe in 24, 48 hours we'll see it. The enemy has it. Iran, Qatar has it. Pakistan has it. We the people don't have it, and yet it is supposed to be formally signed again. I think it was Friday. So Iran has it, Qatar has it, Pakistan has it, we don't have it, and Israel doesn't have it. Odd how we're treating an ally, isn't it? Very, very odd, and I'm going to tell you why. I'm going to tell you why it's odd. 1 second here. I will tell you that, hold on 1 second, Mr. Producer. I want to read what I posted. I don't think I can. Here it is. I'm going to tell you why. Nothing we do in terms of a deal will change the behavior of this enemy. If you don't believe that, you don't know what we're dealing with. If you do believe that, then you know that for them, deals are made to be broken. Put aside all the idiocy and static about who loves whom and who does not. That's the game of online thugs and bots. We're dealing with an ideologically committed terror state that has slaughtered thousands of our fellow Americans, thousands of people in surrounding countries, thousands of Iranians, and as President Trump said, saw nuclear weapons so they could actually use them to kill us. There was a time not long ago when we never negotiated with terrorists or terror regimes. Today we have dealt with intermediaries and now directly with terrorists. And the senior administration official even declared some or many of them now believe their 47 years of murder, rape, torture, terrorism was a mistake. You believe that? That they believe it was a mistake? That's pretty shocking, don't you think?
When they took money off the
regime is still executing innocent young people at a record pace as I speak.
Yeah.
You wouldn't know it during the last several days. They don't even come up anymore. The reporters don't even ask about them. Exactly how has this regime changed? How?
How, yeah.
How has this regime changed? Yes, former leaders are gone, but the regime remains. The ideology remains. The IRGC, their SS remains, all 200,000 of them. And as you can tell, they're not rolling over. We're much more accommodating than we were at the outset. Let's not fool ourselves, ready? This is why all the pressure and berating of Israel and Netanyahu. They simply cannot and must not accommodate the enemy as we wish. And in ways we would never tolerate in our homeland, or in ways the Arabs or Turkey or Pakistan insist they should. We can't be browbeaten by online thugs or anybody else into silence, or sit ignorantly while all this is swirling around and we wait for the actual language of the memorandum of understanding. We want the information, and we want to express our opinions.
Yeah.
Again, this isn't about what team you're on or a loyalty test or whatever. It's a big damn deal. And we as a people and a nation, we want to get this right.
I think we're
And
starting.
as far as I'm concerned, many of us are ardent supporters of the president and the administration, and we want to be helpful and provide our own input based on our experiences and knowledge. Indeed, not everyone in government has all the answers and wisdom, and too damn many of them are leaking and pushing their own policies and agendas. Apart from the president.
World War III.
I know for a fact that Donald Trump is a great and historic president.
Left
I know
him away
he's
from
a
World War
decent
II,
and
we're in World War
compassionate
III.
man who cares deeply about all
I think
this.
we've been in it for a
The same
while.
can be said about Benjamin Netanyahu, who lost his brother in war and was himself injured in battle. The Israeli ambassador
Well, it
lost his
started
eldest son.
through COVID.
The early days of the war against
And now
Hamas in Gaza a few years back.
Halfway
Neither
through.
of our nations are led by dictators or kings, like those that surround Israel. They all have dictators and kings.
Yep.
And we're
Like
dealing
us,
with a
we
death
did.
toll that has seized
England, we
control
have
of Iran
dictators
and
and a
has more
king.
blood on its hands than we can measure.
That's just fucking us back.
The Iranian regime has not and will never change its ideology. And therein lies the problem, doesn't it? As nearly half a century of evil behavior is demonstrated in their own religious and political leaders and books and preachings make abundantly clear. They're about a cause,
That's
a
50 years
revolution.
then, isn't it?
They will not rest until it is exported everywhere, including into our country.
It's 100-year
As
plan.
Allah is said to command
So
them.
I've got 50 years
This
left.
is the reality. We are their enemy, whether we want to be or not. They're at war with us, whether we are or not. We, you see, must be destroyed. Those who insist the deal can be made and that it's preferable, well, they have to prove it.
Prove it.
That's the way our system works. And I'm, for one, very glad about it. So prove it. What's happening now is some of the people in the administration who've led this, who've been involved in it, are trying to control the coverage. That's not going to work. It's not going to last. You and me, Mr. and Mrs. America, we the people, this is our country, this is our government. And Congress isn't going to put up with it either for long, so I'm not sure what the game plan is or why it's being done. One of the things I thought, well, maybe it's just not done. Maybe they signed off on something, but they're still going back and forth. Well, if that's the case, then don't sign off on it. Then you have morons like Jack Posobiec, or whatever the hell his name is, and none of you have ever heard of this guy before, likes to hang around with people who support terror regimes.
Yeah.
That's right.
All of them.
Guy named Myron.
Yeah, well, I'm
Wore a
surprised if
shirt,
they
it
said
was
from England that just
mocking the fact that they're cooking 6 million cookies, meaning Jews. That's who Posobiec is. He runs something called Human Events, which used to be an outstanding conservative publication. I used to know the owners there, the writers there. This guy's an IQ of a kumquat.
I warned Donald Trump about the
And he
king. I
actually
warned
worked
him
for
about
Turning
Number
Point
10.
USA, which is part of the problem. These
I
miscreants and
warned him. I
malcontents
did warn
and
Donald
worse.
Trump. I told Donald Trump and he said, no.
He works for Turning Point USA. You can go
on.
online and see. Keeps talking about the neocons. What he means
I'm
is
not
the Jews.
fucking have Starmer there of Number 10. I said he does. He
Yeah.
wants to fucking
He's
get
an Iranian
Number 10
supporter.
gone.
By the way he speaks and the way he acts. And you ought to look at his background. They all have these sort of fascistic connections or supremacist
Now, this is
connections.
silly.
Very, very evil people.
Yeah, evil
And I
bastards.
should
out
tell
there.
you, ladies and gentlemen, we've tried to reach out to a couple of these slugs, these thugs,
Yeah,
to bring them
that-
on the
that's
radio
it.
show. They don't respond.
Nope. They don't
They
like
don't
talking to
respond. They don't
people
wanna
like
come on the
me either,
radio.
mate, because I'm fucking, no, I'm not making money off anyone.
They're all tough
Poor.
online.
I'm
Very
poor.
tough.
I'll
They throw
twist his
around
fucking
slogans
sister
like
and I'm
Marxist.
like,
Oh, you must be a
asking me
neocon.
anything.
I don't know. Is
I
Trump a
don't matter.
neocon? He decided to go to war, correctly so in my view, for the 1,000 reasons I've given, for 1,000 times. They opposed him. They opposed him.
I've only just about getting a refund.
And yet-
Fucking it.
It's the neocons that got us into all this. They don't understand the enemy is the Islamist regime in Tehran. The enemy is the fascist regime in Moscow. The enemy is the communist regime in Beijing.
Moscow.
It's not you and me. It's not Israel, it's not Taiwan, and it's not Ukraine. But they think it is. They think it is. And they think that they're MAGA. No, they're maggots. There's a big difference.
Maggots, yeah.
He's certainly not alone. There's many of them.
Yeah.
You got guys on one of these thugs who want this to be a debate about whether Donald Trump is a good man or not. He's a great man. That's not the debate. Seems to me we citizens have a responsibility. It's our country. We want to know what's going on, and then we give our opinion. Isn't that a good thing, Mr. Producer?
But we're not allowed
We
to.
want to know what's going on.
We're not allowed to.
We don't want to leave it to Washington, D.C. elites, Democrats or Republicans, media or not. We get to participate. That's the whole reason for the 250th anniversary of our country, the Declaration of Independence, the consent of the government. And if the Memorandum of Understanding is this fantastic document, as some are telling us, I can't wait to read it. I really can't. But time will tell. We shall see. For instance, there's a $300 billion pot of money that is, I guess, funded by Gulf states.
Gulf states.
That'll be available if the Iranian regime meets certain demands. Let me ask you something, Mr. and Mrs. America, just based on that. If you're the Iranian regime, and you're not going to give up your goal, you're just not going to say it, which is destroy us, Israel, and Europe, and murder Muslims who don't agree with you, like people in your own country, how are you going to play that? How are you going to play that? Isn't the way for them to play it is to meet those requirements, then have access to the money, and do whatever the hell they want to do, Mr. Producer? How do we stop them? How do we stop them? See, this is how you create forever war.
All this, yeah.
You know, as Patton said,
Exactly what I've been saying.
when our armies were in Europe, and first FDR and then Truman said, we got to return home as fast as we can. Patton said, but our army's here. We're going to have to deal with these bastards. Let's deal with them now. Now, whether you agree with that or not, under those circumstances, the fact is we got a big percentage of our military sitting there, waiting in the Middle East. They and the Israeli military have crushed the Iranian military. So you might ask yourself, well, what are we waiting for? I don't know. I know that Turkey didn't want us to continue. I know Saudi Arabia and Qatar didn't want us to continue.
Yeah.
I know that Pakistan didn't want us to continue because they're very close to Iran.
I know England didn't want you to continue.
Well, how do those interests align with ours?
So as I say, high integrity, I think, from Mark Levin in saying this. And the key principle has to be the only outcome that's acceptable is not a deal where they say, yeah, we won't do that anymore, we won't do this anymore. You can't trust them. Their whole ideology is based on the destruction of Israel, America, the West. And so unless they denounce their ideology, the only acceptable outcome is regime change. Now people turn around to me and say, Ollie, but what are you talking about? You think we should have to swallow having loads of troops on the ground, you know, risking our own people's lives to do that? Well, first of all, we're not necessarily directing America on what to do,
that's why we've got
saying that's what America should do.
Here.
I'm speaking on behalf of,
from
my vantage point as someone that's Jewish,
that
speaking with the concerns of the Jewish people in my mind, but also what I think and believe is moral. I think it's very much in America's interest as well, because they're threatening America's, security. But the point is that I'm just talking about what would count as a win. Forget who does it, forget how it's done. But saying what would count as a win, actual peace, is if the regime is destroyed. So whether America or Israel do it or they do it together, the regime needs to be destroyed. And people say it's such a high price to pay. First of all, if they did what Trump threatened to do back in April, which was to basically cripple the state of Iran so fundamentally that either the people would come up and rise up, which has not happened yet, because it wasn't crippled enough, wasn't degraded enough, or the other option would be it'd be so degraded that it'd be very easy for troops to come in and occupy, as is what happened after World War II in Germany. So it's not like it would be like a massive casualty event for American and Israeli troops. Trump said, burn the bridges, the oil refineries, let's get involved in basically bringing this Iranian state to its knees in terms of its ability to function. Because as painful and as tragic as that is, that might be what it's going to be what it takes to bring down this regime, whatever it takes ultimately. Because that's what they're seeking to do to us. And why is it unacceptable to do that and accept the ongoing threat and increasing threat of a regime that will rebuild and seek to do that to us in actually a far more catastrophic and comprehensive way? This is simply a means for them to bring down the regime.
And Europe.
The question is whether we have the stomach to do that. I think it's also whether we believe it's right. And I think there's perhaps too many people that think you just can't do that. Maybe Vance and others saying that. Don't get me wrong, I understand it's very comprehensive and severe and will cause a lot of suffering. I don't want her to fly, I don't want to see any war happen. But now that we're in this situation where we're facing a Hitlerian evil, I'm just thinking logically. I don't know why we make this so intellectually complicated. It's very simple. Someone is trying to kill you. You stop them and you kill them, you do whatever it takes. That is moral. People who say otherwise are deeply confused. Hey, just quickly, our new documentary lifts the lid on one of the most controversial words in the whole Israeli-Arab conflict. Don't know what I'm talking about? Well, have a watch of the trailer to find out. And if you want to watch the full thing, just click on the link below in the video description. On October 28, 2023, just days after the Hamas October 7th massacre, Benjamin Netanyahu, Prime Minister of Israel, stood before the cameras and quoted it. The Israel critics reacted with horror, but almost nobody stopped to ask, what does it actually mean, Amalek? The word is thousands of years old. It appears in the Torah, the Bible, in the Talmud, in the writings of the great rabbis. The Torah command is clear. Amalek must be wiped out. And yet, most people have almost no idea what Amalek really is. Because Amalek is not simply an ancient tribe. It's a force, a spiritual virus, the voice inside civilizations, and inside every single human being, that whispers, nothing is sacred, morality isn't worth it, and it sees as its greatest enemy the Jews. 3,000 years of Jewish wisdom says this force is the most dangerous thing in the world. And amazingly, the Talmud, written almost 2,000 years ago, names a place it calls Germania, and it predicts if this force were ever fully unleashed, it would destroy the world. Germania sounds familiar. Centuries later, the Jewish thinkers who crawled out of the Nazi death camps sat with that passage and felt the ground move beneath them. In this JCV Plus documentary, we're going to reveal what Amalek really is, what the commandment to eliminate Amalek really means, and why its defeat is the condition for the redemption of the world. To watch this JTV Plus documentary and access much more premium content, click on the link in the video description.